wait, okay, so you're telling me that I should work harder to make you more money, right? And when you see that disparity between corporate profits growing like, exponentially, but wage rises, the average wage rate not really keeping up with that at all. And like probably the big disparities there between like CEO pay and average worker pay. You start to go, right. So tell me why I should work much harder, spend less time with my family, less time at the beach, less time doing things I want to do, just so you get slightly richer.
We are back in your life, and today we're talking about the productivity issue with New Zealand. New Zealand was once the Rockstar economy. Small, scrappy, and playing above their weight class. They were a small guy, but taking on the big dogs. Today though, Mike, things feel slower. Things feel harder. It's just like we're going and going, but we're not getting where we want to get to. What do you reckon, mate?
I reckon this was going to be way more productive until just before we started recording, James and I were singing. I stopped because it was going quite high. James basically hit a falsetto before, in tune before we got on camera. And it was quite, Em and I looked at each other and were like, what just happened?
Yeah, I got to say, if it was in tune.
You have an octave range that is very surprising.
Yeah, if it was in tune, that's just dumb. Like, hey, don't ask me to do it again.
Okay, all right. Anyway, let's get this back on productivity.
Let's get productive with this podcast.
Get productive with this podcast. Maybe that's exactly what we're talking about today. It's that we just stray from things. Yeah. Look, so today we're going to talk about productivity in New Zealand. And I think really important to frame this discussion around why we're having it now, right? Around kind of like, yeah, everyone's a bit down in the doldrums, the economy isn't doing so well. And like, if we could be a bit more productive, everyone would feel a little bit richer. But it's like kind of, where were we? Where are we now? How do we get back there? And then my theme is probably around the way that people interpret productivity. Around like, why are you just telling me to work harder so you can get richer?
Let's get into that, Mike, because I think we've got differing opinions. First, we
can have different opinions.
Let's get into some of the background. So productivity measures how much value we create per hour worked.
Yeah.
And New Zealand has been falling behind for decades, not just since COVID. Productivity growth averaged around 1.4% between 1993 and 2013.
Yeah.
But slowed to 0.2%.
Yeah.
0.2% over the past decade. So gone from 1.4% a year to 0.2% a year.
Yeah.
Over the last 10 years, labor productivity growth has averaged roughly 0.5% compared with other OECD countries at 0.9. So pretty much when we were comparing ourselves to our peers, we're doing about half of what they're doing.
Yeah. I think the other thing I think is important, let's define what productivity actually is. So James, what is productivity? How's it measured?
So for an hour of work, how much money am I generating? That's essentially what we're talking about.
And when we say generating, we're generating for?
In total. So it's not just for the person.
Yeah.
It's the business, it's expenses, it's profits.
Cool. Alrighty.
So let's do it, Mike.
Sorry, that wasn't a dig at you.
Nah, let's go.
I feel like people throw economic jargon around all the time and expect people to kind of like understand what we're talking about. And I'm like, just to be like productivity. I'm like, yeah, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
In a day-to-day sense.
So you've got an interesting take on this. So let's jump into it. Tell me what your gripe is around when people talk about productivity.
I don't have a gripe. I think that it's just like misunderstood. And when you hear people going, we're not as productive. We need to be more productive. New Zealand used to be really productive and now we suck, right? And like, I'm moving overseas to another more productive place. I don't know. Generally speaking, that comes from people who are quite wealthy and aren't the ones actually doing the work to produce the profit. And I feel like a lot of people interpret that as just like, wait, okay, so you're telling me that I should work harder to make you more money, right? And when you see that disparity between corporate profits growing like, exponentially, but wage rises, the average wage rate not really keeping up with that at all. And like probably the big disparities there between like CEO pay and average worker pay, you start to go, right. So tell me why I should work much harder, spend less time with my family, less time at the beach, less time doing things I want to do, just so you get slightly richer?
Yeah, my view on it is a couple of fold. One is you have to look at like the brain drain going to other countries, right? Across a whole range of different industries and occupations, people can get paid more money overseas than locally for the same number of hours worked. When we're talking about productivity, we're not saying go from working 40 hours a week to 60 or 80. We're going, how can we be more efficient? How can we have a common one is probably in our export industry, premium products. How do we get more of those out to the rest of the world where we can expand, hire more people? And the last piece for me is like, you're talking about business profits. I mean, a metric for that is the NZX. And the NZX is a joke compared to other indices across the world. So I don't know, man. I got probably a differing view to you.
No, I think we have the same view. I just think that the way that people interpret stuff, right? That's what I'm not. I said I don't have a gripe with this. Like, man, we're not allowed to fight. We've tried this before.
People loved it. People love us when we argue. We don't argue very often.
No, I mean in the boxing.
Nah,
we weren't allowed. So yeah, I think.
I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to tell the story because people want to hear the story. Mike and I, when maybe about a decade ago, Mike and I did a charity fight night.
Yeah,
we trained for. Was it 2 or 3 months?
It was like 4.
Yeah, felt like a long time.
It was the longest fight camp ever.
Yeah, very unnecessary, but probably reflected how out of shape we were when we started.
Oh, I had skills.
Yeah, and we trained.
Throw a punch.
We trained every morning, every evening for
4 months.
For 4 months. It was like 4 hours a day of training.
Yeah.
We get right to the end, and they're deciding who we're going to fight. And Mike goes, "I want to fight James," and I'm like, "Excuse me." And unless you can tell, I'm 100 kilos and 6 foot. Mike's about 80 kilos, straight out of the shower and not 6 foot.
Soaking wet.
5'11" and a half, definitely. And I'm like, "Are we all good, man?" And he goes, "Seriously, I'll sign any waiver." And they're like, we're not letting you do that. So it goes back a while.
Yeah. No, but like, and again, I just think that what we really need to kind of drill home to people, we are not just saying that people need to work harder. It's about finding efficiencies in the way we're working. It's about being like, you still have the option to go spend time with your family, do all the things you want to do, but per hour put in, we're getting out more profit out the bottom.
Yeah, and like coming back to teachers and nurses overseas can get paid more money. They're working for the government, right? They're not working for businesses that are making a profit. That's reflective of businesses doing really well, paying more tax, a growing economy, and then those incomes are there on the other side. The really interesting thing is, once again, you go back a decade and you go, numbers are far better, but they've just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah. I wonder if there is a case of teachers actually been able to go overseas and earn more money working for the government because businesses are performing better in that economy, and not actually just the economy is a one-trick pony and has some like oil, mining, some type of Dutch disease behind it, where that's what's propping everything up. Because the major example is the UAE, right?
Yeah.
Which is just oil.
Yeah.
Like oil money. Or you go Australia. They can go to Australia.
Yeah.
And Australia is just one giant mine with some services tacked onto it, right? And like the Australian economy is a real one-trick pony, right? So like and again, then if you look outside of that, they're usually working for private schools. Yeah. You know, they're not usually going and working for like, you know, the UK government. You know, like you hear people going working for like private institutions that have a lot of money.
Yeah, and New Zealand's made the call like not to drill, right? And that's like probably not a discussion for today. But if you're going to go, we're going to remove that, you have to replace it with something else. Yeah. To make sure that
which has got to be the innovation.
Yeah, for sure. Which was there and has disappeared, and now it feels like. You know, and it's a very interesting time, right? Because the economy is going to be changing faster and faster with AI and technology. But we've just been using them the same work, doing the same tools. We've been thinking about growth from like hiring opposed to efficiencies within businesses. The property issue is probably another interesting one.
Capital flights are like a non-productive asset. And I would class farming as a fairly non-productive asset as well, which like our economy really does pivot on kind of property and farming. And I'm not saying it's completely not productive, but if you look at a farm, the revenue it generates, the amount of income it brings in, we don't hire a lot of people, right? You can run a station with like 4 people.
I got to say, Mike, I've been getting some feedback about your comments about the farms. The farmers
they've come for me.
The farmers have been commenting to me and feel like maybe you're not that educated on the farming space.
I grew up on a farm.
And I guess the flow-on impact to suppliers.
Yeah.
So if you disagree with Mike when it comes to the farmers, let us know.
I would like when I say that, I'm comparing it to manufacturing, services, industries that employ a lot of people. That's my one thing. I'm not saying they don't invest. I'm not saying they don't buy more coffee or whatever like that. I'm just saying that, like, pound for pound, they're not ultra productive. They're not ultra productive for the rest of the economy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of expenses when it comes to a farm, a lot of suppliers that you're paying, a lot of people that you're using, and that flows on.
Talk to me about the expenses, James.
I'm not going to talk to you about the expenses.
Talk to me about the people expenses.
No, I have got that feedback from a couple of people.
I know, I've seen it. Yeah.
Let's move on, Mike, back to the the NZX and that kind of Rockstar economy. So, like, in the early to mid 2010s, dare I say, when John Key was at the peak of his powers,
I saw him the other day.
New Zealand genuinely earned the Rockstar economy label. Our GDP was growing about 3.7% a year between 2014 2016. Tourism was booming. We had high net migration numbers. Our commodity prices were doing really well, particularly dairy, and that confidence flowed into our exchange, the NZX. So if we look at the numbers, 2014 it was 17%, 2015 was 13%, 2016 was 8%, 2017 was 22%, and the very interesting thing during this period, Mike, the S&P 500 was doing sweet F-all.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The New Zealand economy outperforming the S&P 500, over the same period is pretty wild when you look at things now. I think one of the real issues is once we start to get into this kind of funk, right? This kind of like, this is where the economy is sitting. You touched on it before. We get what's called that brain drain, right? Where people go overseas, and usually with Kiwis, what happens is people go overseas and they come back. We're not seeing that. We're seeing people just leave and going, actually, I can get a better life here for the same amount of input. Why would I go back to New Zealand? That's tricky to get out of, right? Because what you need to foster a place where people, one, want to live, two, there's innovation, three, cost of living's not too bad, four, the weather probably has a lot to do with it as well, which you can't really control. So, like, to get those three, you need a lot of like tax money or kind of like benefits or something to try and get things going.
Yeah, there is no silver bullet to fix it, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of things. However, I have heard Nicola Willis talk about, our huge advantage in terms of green. There is advantages to being at the bottom of the world. We don't have missiles flying over us, compared to a lot of other places. It's perceived as very safe, beautiful environment. There is a lot of good things. I guess, the piece is going, if I can go and earn a truckload more money overseas for the same amount of effort, why wouldn't I go and do that?
Yeah, and I mean, I was when I was researching for this, I was seeing stuff like our economy dropped one place in like economic rankings last year from 6th to 7th globally, right? The US economy is somewhere down the bottom, like 36th or something like that, or like place. So you go, the economy appears to be in good shape by financial metrics, but how is it? How are we achieving that ranking if we're like everyone's leaving? It's like, are we plugging that brain drain with immigration? Why doesn't it feel like we're going forward? Why does it feel like we're going backwards? Why does it feel like we're not innovating? We've had people on the podcast in the past, Mahesh, talking about the stuff he's doing with his innovation labs, and we've got private entities trying to foster that environment to get companies going. So I don't think we're like lost forever. But I really feel like we need some proper support in the economy and like a mindset shift around like, let's get things going.
Yeah, I mean, in the US, there's just so much money there in terms of venture capital to invest. The good news is there is a 34% increase in the number of angel investors over the past year, but it's up to 455, which doesn't sound like a lot. Icehouse Ventures, which if you don't know, Icehouse Ventures is one of the New Zealand's most active venture capital firms. They have invested more than $630 million into over 375 companies. So there is some like good stuff. It is becoming a little bit, more aware in that space. New Zealand does have angel investors and venture capital, but the total pool around a few hundred. It's just...
Yeah, it's not a ton, right? And that capital really does create the environment and creates opportunity. I think one of our issues with being so far kind of remote from everywhere is like, why would a big company come set up here? Like if you're a finance institution, you just go to Sydney or like Singapore. So being remote does have its advantages, but it also does work against us as well.
And our lack of scale. Like,
we're a suburb in London.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're one block in like Mumbai. So it's not a huge, like, we don't have a huge kind of like, I guess, there's no massive profits that are going to be generated here on a global scale. But that does also present us with opportunities.
It does.
If you want to test a product, why would you not test it down here, right? Like, we are a fairly homogenous society in terms of kind of like our global makeup. If you fail, it's not going to be a big cost. There's not huge brand risk down here. Like you see brands, global brands, making their own individual brand for New Zealand, testing stuff, and then if it works, they'll ship it overseas. If it doesn't, they just keep it in the sandbox.
Once again, come back to Mahesh. He was talking about how a New Zealand entrepreneur will be way more careful with what they've got to work with and make it go a lot further. So I guess, Mike, the question is like, what can people do? Are we all screwed? What are where do we go?
I think it's almost taking a leaf out of that Aussie playbook of like, she'll be right, let's have a crack. I think that's the big one. It's like just having a crack at stuff. Like, if you want to start a business, going out and starting the business, right? If you've got an idea, doing something about it, right? Like, I think that's fundamentally where it starts, because once those ideas become products and those products become companies, then that's when we're changing the economy.
What do you think about like the tall poppy mindset? Do you think that's got anything to do with this?
Not really. I think maybe once upon a time, but like, I don't think there's enough tall poppies now where no one really cares.
There's 400.
Yeah, there's 455 tall poppies, mate. Who cares?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, man. I think because we get more of that like American influence, TikTok influence, internet influence around like being successful, that actually, I don't think the tall poppy thing is as much of an issue as it used to be. And a lot of the times it's when those tall poppies are acting like.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Let us know in the comments section. What do you think about New Zealand's productivity? Do you think it's an issue compared to other parts of the world? And what the hell do we do about it? Much love for watching this episode. Please make sure to subscribe, give us a review and a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.